Dr. Joan Borosenko is a respected scientist, licensed clinical psychologist, gifted therapist, and best-selling author. Trained in cell biology, she received her doctorate from Harvard Medical School. She is a pioneer in the field of mind-body health and well-being and has inspired millions of listeners and readers to achieve their life goals.
Thanks. Thanks so much for coming. You should all get a chance to be applauded for like that. It does a lot for your immune system, let me tell you. We've come here today to talk about our crazed, busy life, where so many of us feel completely imprisoned by the to-do list. And you're nodding, so I know that's true. Sometimes you think what on earth the purpose of life is, to get everything done. And then, as my good friend Loretta LaRoche says, your tombstone will say, got it all done, dead anyhow. So we have to figure out how we can get the to-do list done and live to tell about it. How we can live with a sense of joy and a sense of peace and a sense of community and a sense of creativity, so that when we get up in the morning we can say, I'm so glad to be alive. I can't wait for what's happening next. Now I've got good news for you. The peace and the joy you seek is not something outside of yourself. It's not something that you have to look for here and look for there and say, gee, I'll be peaceful when I get the report done. Or I'll be really peaceful if I lose the 10 pounds off my thighs. It's something that exists inside of us every moment. And all we have to do is part the clouds of busyness and care and concern that cover that joy and creativity and peace that really are the essence of what it is to be human. Now these days, it's really common for people to say, yes, I'm on the search, I'm on the journey for inner peace, and to really do their best to get there. The trouble is this. We think, okay, what could I do to get inner peace? Maybe I could learn to meditate. And if that's good, maybe I could take a yoga class. And if that's good, maybe I could learn some of these Tai Chi exercises. That would be good. Maybe I could get up at 3 in the morning and then I could finish all these inner peace exercises by noon. This would be great. And then you know what happens? We don't do anything. You give it all up. I can tell you what my motto is right now. Do what you can, not what you won't. It's small steps. If you can learn to breathe, which we'll do together. If you do a meditation that lasts for 2 minutes. If you can adopt an optimistic attitude that you take with you all the time. That's it. It shouldn't take any extra time to have peace of mind in our busy world. It really is a matter of figuring out what is going on in your mind and learning to manage your mind, to take control of that, to come into the moment, and you don't have to be a hermit or a yogi to do it. Now, the ordinary busy life, we all know what it's like. I got up a couple of weeks ago, I made the coffee, I poured my first cup, I rushed to get my email, I fought with the computer. There's almost nothing worse than a computer that turns against you, is there? There's just something, unbelievable. And so I rush back to get my second cup of coffee. The coffee pot is gone. I can't believe it. I'm thinking, who was so desperate that they came in here and stole my coffee pot? How could that have happened? And then I start to ask my secretary, have you seen the coffee pot? This is when you know you've lost it. You've gone over the edge. Finally, she comes into the kitchen to help. She opens the cabinets, and I have actually put it back in the cabinet with the mugs. This is a cue. This is when you say, I'd better take some time out. to retrench here and make another plan. I better do a little bit of deep breathing. I better step back. I better find my peaceful center before there's a wake of trouble that follows me. And that's what happens often, isn't it true? We get so busy that we misplace the coffee pot, or we have no time to listen to our loved ones. I think that's the very worst. Some of you here have probably heard the term compassion fatigue. It often happens to people who are in service kinds of jobs. And they're there because they care about people. They love people. They want them to be healthy, to be happy, just like we do with our families. But we get so busy that we end up thinking, I don't have time to listen to you. And suddenly the very people that we love the most and want to serve the most end up being pains in the butt. That's the really, really difficult thing. And once again, I had an awareness that this happens in my life too. My husband, Kurt, who's sitting over there, the one who looks like Albert Einstein. Kurt and I went to an antique store. I wanted a little stand because I have this beautiful statue of Kuan Yin, who's the Chinese bodhisattva of compassion. So you look at her and you're supposed to think, I could be peaceful. My nature is kindness. And in the store there was a really pretty stand, and it was made of lemon wood, which, being a thin tree, is irregular. And every one of the legs was actually a different color. It had an interesting history. And the man was telling us about the history and telling us about the history. And my inner dialogue is going something like, God, I wish he'd shut up. I just want to get out of here. I have to go back to the house. I have things to do. I have books to sort. I have reports to write. I have things to do. And then he says, the person who brought this stand in for sale, I know it has a wonderful story behind it. I'll have her give you a call. And I'm thinking, no, 1,000 times no. And at the same time, a piece of me is saying, isn't this what I really long for? Isn't this what I'm missing? The sense of community? The sense of somebody will call you up and tell you the story of an antique? And once again I thought, I've got to do something to help myself and help other people, because the world is so busy that what we long for, to fill our hearts, to fill the sense of emptiness we have when we get so lonesome because we're so busy, well, what can you do? We have to make time for it. Now, I have good news about taking the time to relax. When I used to run the mind-body clinic, some of you actually know where that clinic was. It was at actually 2 different Harvard teaching hospitals. People would come in and they would say, learn to relax? If I learn to relax, I'll never get the to-do list done. I will lose my edge and I will turn into a slob, a sloth. And nothing could be further from the truth. Turns out that learning to relax can make you more efficient. And I'm going to demonstrate how stress affects productivity, because you've all had the experience where a deadline is looming and suddenly you're removed from slothhood and you can produce incredible amounts. I've had that so many times writing a report, and I always think, thank God for deadlines, because they make me do miracles. Suddenly they take dissipated energy and it makes you coherent and focused. So you got to pretend that I'm a piece of graph paper. Can you do that? Yeah. And here is the x-axis and here is the y-axis. A bell-shaped curve shows you, as you start to get more and more stressed, you start to get more and more productive till you're at the top of the curve. But when panic sets in, you slide right off the other end. And those are the days at the office when you walk around with a pile of papers in your hand looking dazed. And you say to everybody, Have you seen my work? Have you seen my work? And of course, that's what happens when we get too busy. We lose our efficiency. And yet, that's how we're expected in our society to be able to work, to keep up that pace all the time. Now, the amazing thing is, many of us are working somewhere near the top of the curve, but we are over the edge. And when you're over the edge physiologically, what happens is you're getting burned out. You're using your adrenal glands, you're pumping yourself full of adrenaline, your eyes are red, your lips are cracked, your tongue is parched as you're racing to the finish line. And what's happening to you actually is that all of that adrenaline and also cortisone truly is burning out your body. It burns out your immune system, it stresses your heart, and then you find, gee, I've lost my health to this chronic state of busyness. The good news is that you can learn to shift back from that descending limb of this Yerkes-Dodson curve, as it's called, to the front part of the curve, where you're getting just as much done, but you're not burning out your body. In fact, you're energizing yourself. As you all know what that feeling is when you feel like, I'm in the zone, I'm centered, I'm on target, all systems are go, but you feel thrilled by life, inspired by life, almost as if inspiration were coming from some larger source. And that's when you look at whatever you've created and you go, wow, where did that come from? Did I actually do that? That happens to me sometimes when I write. I can't believe it, that these ideas came out of me. So I figure they really didn't. They really came through me. But the reason they were able to come through me is I got out of that stress zone where you really are, you might create, boy, but it's taken every last mitochondria in your cell to accomplish this. And I've shifted myself to that place that, oh, some people call their center. And that's the state of inner peace. That's the state we're looking for. That's the state, too, when we feel so joyful and so connected to life. And that's the state when the guy in the antique store says, let me tell you a story about this. And you go, wow, I'd love to hear your story. So that's what we're really, really aiming for. And that's why a little bit of relaxation can make you a lot more productive and help you last in the long run. Now, one of the keys to relaxation is breathing. When we're tense, what happens is that you tend to breathe from your chest. You lock up your diaphragm, which is the main muscle of breathing. And chest breathing actually elevates your heart rate and it makes you feel anxious. So how many times, I wonder, during the day do you yawn or sigh? In a stressed society, you can hear the sighing echoes up and down the corridors, sighing, sighing. That's the body's natural way of releasing stress. Because when you sigh, you stop breathing with your chest muscles, and it resets your diaphragm so that after a big sigh, your next breath comes from the belly. If you've ever watched a baby sleep, it's like there's a little balloon in there. It expands and contracts. Breathe in, it expands. Breathe out, it contracts. That will actually reduce your heart rate, reduce your blood pressure, make you feel more relaxed, and elicit what my former colleague, Dr. Herbert Benson, the Harvard cardiologist, calls the relaxation response, the body's opposite of the stress response. So I want you to give this all a try now. Take a deep breath. Big sigh. As the next breath comes in, just allow your belly to puff out. And as you breathe out, Just feel it relax. And that's all you need to do. If you want, you can even add a little verbal reminder, like when you breathe in, peace. When you breathe out, relax. And then it's just a matter of becoming aware. And the great thing about breathing is it doesn't take any extra time. Right? You have to do it anyhow. Throughout the day, when you say, there I am, I'm off the edge of the curve, I've become homicidal, you say to yourself, I could take a breath. I could choose peace. And you go, and if you just take 4 or 5 breaths, do you know that's a key to peace of mind? It's been written about since thousands of years before the birth of Christ in something called the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, that the breath is the key to the mind-body interaction and the key to inner peace. Now, when you breathe like that, the other thing it reminds you to do is be in the moment. Be here now. It was John Lennon who said, life is what's happening to us while we're making other plans. And the busier you get, the more you're living in past and future. Did I say everything I had to say in that phone conversation? Gosh, I wish I said it differently. Did I get it done? Ugh, my to-do list is huge. What am I going to do? Will I finish all these things by tomorrow? And we end up living in a perpetual state of somewhere where we're beside ourselves, literally. We're out of our own lives. I was reading a magazine article about saving time a couple of years ago, and it had this idea. When you shower, wash your hair only once and not twice, and this will save time. Said, like, we are getting desperate. And that made me think. Rushing through the shower, I tried it, like the Indy 500. It was like going through a car wash. And emerging at the end like the scene in Psycho, as if Mad Norman had been waiting in there. And I thought, that's not the purpose of a shower. A shower is one of the most beautiful, sensual, relaxing parts of the day. But the idea is that we've been taught to multitask. You're supposed to read a magazine while you eat, or watch the news while you eat. While you shower, you can plan your day and answer your emails in your head. I can remember there are times in the shower when the only way I could remember did I or did I not shave my legs was by reaching down and seeing. Because I was somewhere else. I was everywhere but in the moment. These days, the term for coming back into your own self and into your own life is an ancient term called mindfulness. And to be mindful means to be present in the moment. One little thing you can do to be mindful in the shower is to say, this is all I will do. I will not plan my day. I will be present and enjoy this. And you can just say to yourself, let me savor the sensations of the warm water, of the suds. Your mind is going to wander, because it always will. But when it does, you just bring it back. Be here now. Here I am in the shower. And sometimes I even imagine that the water coming down is like a waterfall of light and of energy that revives me, that washes through me, that takes away the fatigue and makes me new, to greet the day with the absolute best that I have. And it's not just in showering, it's really in any activity. You could eat while you eat. Make love while you make love. Do what you're doing one thing at a time. And that way, you will enjoy your life. So let me tell you just a little story of mindfulness. There was a friend of mine who died of AIDS several years ago. And what a great, wonderful, beautiful human being he was. And I was visiting him. He had a giant Christmas cactus that was in bloom. And it was covered with flowers which they bloom very briefly. they're gone in about 24 hours. Some of you are nodding because, you know, they get kind of goopy, and then they turn to rice paper almost, and they flutter down. Well, I, Miss Recovering Perfectionist, who hates to see dirt in any form, see it, and I'm thinking, my God, poor Jay is going to have to pick up this big mess off the floor. I'll just pick off all the dying blooms. I'll save him the trouble. And there I am. And he comes over and he says, Joni, I really appreciate what you're trying to do for me. But the truth is, everything has its life cycle. Everything has a birth and a death. And the flowers to me are no less beautiful in their dying than they are in their blooming. And so please just let them be. I don't mind cleaning up the mess. And I thought, how typical that is, that we don't take time to enjoy the full cycle of life. We're not mindful because our idea is on clean up the mess, go to the next thing. So Jay taught me patience. And I have to say, he's the person I pray for more than anybody because I have 2 Christmas cactuses. And they bloom a couple times a year, and every time I rush over, I think, no, I won't do this. And I send up a little prayer for my friend who was so beautiful and such a great teacher of patience. If you want to be mindful and in the present moment, I have one more small step you can take that has such a big payoff, and that is gratitude. There is a wonderful Cistercian monk whose name is Brother David Steindl-Rast. What a book he wrote. It's called Gratefulness, the Heart of Prayer. And somebody asked him in an interview, how is it that you're so mindful? You are so present. You are just a space of possibility that greets the world with love. And they said to him, is it because of prolonged meditation? And he said, it's really because of gratitude. Every night before I go to bed, I thank God for one thing that I've never been grateful for before. So I thought, good kind of idea, I'll try it. For a month, this is really easy. Then you start running out of stuff. And if you know you have to do this, then all day long you're thinking about things. Gee, I've never been grateful for that shadow on the building before. I've never been grateful for walking down the mall and seeing the incredible smile on the face of that particular child before. And if you practice gratitude, it will keep you mindful. It will reduce your stress. It will bring you into the heart, prevent you from burning out, so that you can show up with all the love and kindness you are to all of the people who love you. Each one of us knows how we would ideally like to be. The trouble is that there's a little diabolical voice that lives in the machine. And that little diabolical voice has been called the dirty tricks department of the mind. We think, gee, I would like to be peaceful, but then 40 or 50 causes for worry immediately come up, and we take the bait and we start to worry. Do you know, I read an incredible statistic. I couldn't believe it. 75% of the average person's thinking is negative. Isn't that amazing? But truly, most of us aren't really very good at watching our internal dialogue. Unless you're Woody Allen, then you make whole movies based on your internal dialogue. But we edit it. Sometimes a friend will really tell you, if they're a good friend, hey, you're stuck in being negative. And you know, you didn't even notice it yourself. One of the keys to inner peace is becoming aware of your inner dialogue, because that awareness gives you a choice to think differently and to overcome the dirty tricks department of the mind. I find that just labeling what goes on in the dirty tricks department is really a big help. And there's a psychologist whose name is Albert Ellis, and he coined some fabulous ideas for what goes on in your head. He calls the kind of worrying that I do a lot awfulizing. And that is, of course, when, you know, a job doesn't come in, maybe that I was expecting, something like this, and instantly I see my children on the mall with begging bowls, you know? Or I get a headache, and soon I've worked it into a brain tumor. I'm feeling weakness and tremors in my extremities. That's awfulizing.